The psychedelic revolution is here. If you want to integrate your visionary experiences into your purpose, get clear on your entrepreneurial path, and help people while you do what you love, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur, medicine for these times. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a spiritual business coach, 3-time entrepreneur, and a lifelong student of psychedelics and sacred plant medicines. You carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times. This podcast will help you to share your medicine so you can create transformation in the world. Listen in on conversations with psychedelic leaders, changemakers, and conscious entrepreneurs who are living proof that a better world is possible when you follow your heart and live in alignment with your soul. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur. Today, I am so excited to have my former client and friend and amazing human being, Jill Van Meter, here on the show with us. Hi, Jill. Thank you for being with us.
It's an honor. Thank you.
So really quickly, Jill Van Meter is a psychedelic somatic therapist supporting people in connecting to and clearing past traumas and emotional wounds that are still being held unconsciously in the body and nervous system. By using small amounts of legal psychedelics such as cannabis and ketamine, Jill takes people on a somatic body journey where the difficulties as well as the magic of being a limitless spirit confined in the limitations of a human body are explored, revealed, and healed. Jill is also a licensed acupuncturist, breathwork facilitator, certified coactive coach, and a passionate cowgirl that uses horses to help people heal. So, Jill, I am so excited to hear more about this, and especially, the horse therapy or equine therapy part, because I've not heard much about that myself. But let's get started with the first question. What was your path to getting to where you're at now? I know you're an acupuncturist. You've studied all these modalities. You do breath work. I know you have this free breath work online. But how did you get here? And was this always your path of a healer since you were young?
Oh, well, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much. And it's exciting to kind of share my path because I feel like I have found some amazing modalities and therapies along the way that I love sharing with people. I think it started around 7. I became kind of passionate about learning about people and myself and how the world works. And I was always interested in kind of weird, different things. And so I think I was 8 and I had to do a report for school. And I had heard about this store that had, it was like a witch store in Santa Monica. So my dad took me, I interviewed a warlock there. When I was 8 years old for this project for school. So I've always kind of been a seeker and interested in learning about, again, life, what makes us tick, how we connect to each other. So along the way, I decided that acupuncture school would be the most amazing thing for me to do because it incorporated all the things I was interested in, which was the emotional aspect of us, the physical, as well as the spiritual. And so I read all the forms about, what we would be studying in acupuncture school. And I remember saying to my sister, this is all the stuff I study in my free time. This is my place. So for me, when I first had acupuncture, I felt that it really empowered me in my own healing. It made me more aware of what was going on within me and the choices that I was going to be able to start making for myself. And that's really why I became an acupuncturist, is ultimately I wanted to help empower people in their own healing. Not to, fix them or save them, but to really help people understand themselves. And so that's kind of what's led me on this continued journey into coaching, which I really feel is such a powerful, powerful way to help people discover, just by asking curious questions, we can help somebody really deep dive into the ahas for themselves. So again, I never really wanted to be telling people what to do. I wanted more to be kind of the excavator, helping them to dive deep. So that's how I became a coach, was I wanted to go deeper and deeper with people. And during the time that I was in acupuncture school, about 30 years ago, was when I was introduced to psychedelics. And that's in, the whole spiritual, I mean, there was a little bit in high school, but this was I was 30. And to be introduced to all these indigenous ways, to do it in, fasting before and really going in with intention, that was so powerful for me. And I was really lucky. I got to be with some really amazing people at that time who were kind of the renaissance at that period of time of psychedelics. But it was much more underground than it is now. Yeah. And at that time, I really did want to help to facilitate and integrate with the psychedelic process. I myself, at that time in my life, I had quite a few really, really difficult journeys, and I didn't really have anybody to help me integrate. And eventually it almost turned into kind of like a post-traumatic stress for me. Mm-hmm. Because at that time, people weren't really talking about it. You would go and do the experience, but then you would go home. And I mean, I had, I think, a regular therapist or a coach, and they didn't have experience with it. So it all kind of, everything was getting blown open, but I had absolutely no help with it to integrate it. And I actually walked away for quite a long time because it was so difficult for me, and because I think there was so much more healing that I needed to do in myself before I was able to really handle the immensity of what a psychedelic journey can bring forward. I think that there's times in our lives where it's perfect, and there's times in our lives where maybe it's not the right time, and it's not for everybody also is the other thing. So the psychedelics came back around to me and started calling me back and saying that this is what I was supposed to do, was to really help people to integrate these experiences. Again, I wanted to help people so they didn't have to go through what I went through, of really feeling kind of broken a little bit, or maybe shattered from the experiences and really unable to kind of bring it all together. So I've become a psychedelic integration coach and did a certification program in that. And at the same time, I was also studying working with horses. So the horse thing kind of came out of the blue for me too. I never really rode horses as a kid. Just once a year we would go camping, and we would go on a trail ride where the horses are like so lumped together that they just kind of follow each other, and nothing ever happened. It was just this easy peasy thing. And then all of a sudden, about 8 or 9 years ago, it's kind of like with the psychedelics. Suddenly I got a calling. I just knew that I was supposed to be around horses. I just knew that I was supposed to get involved with psychedelics again. And I didn't know how that would look with the horses or the psychedelics. And then I had a friend who had a horse, and there was some other horses at this ranch. And so my friend said, well, she needs people to ride them and exercise them. Would you want to come ride? I know. And I thought, well, yeah, perfect. I get to just go ride. So they put me on this really old horse, and supposedly my friend's son rode the horse backwards. It was such a gentle horse. And it's funny because the last time I had been on a horse was like 20 years before, when I was at a psychedelic conference down in Palenque in Chiapas, Mexico. And I rode a horse down there, and that was the last time I had been on a horse. So it'd been like 20 years. And so I'm on this old horse, and we're riding on the street, and the horse just suddenly took off. And I flew in the air. I landed on the asphalt. The horse stepped on my back, and I fractured my wrist. And so I said, well, that's that. No more horses for me. But they continued to call. So I decided to take riding lessons so I could learn how to really be around a horse. And then I've done 2-year-long Equus coach programs. So, and I guess so ultimately kind of the work that I'm doing is really taking people into these altered spaces so that they can really tap into the unconscious wisdom and trauma and information that's held in the body and in the unconscious mind, so that again is where the healing can happen. So that's the horses. They say horses live in like a quarter time of human time. So when you're around a horse, time slows down and we tap more into our heart as we connect to the horse's heart. So it really does take us into this whole different space. And the horse is so sensitive, they're picking up our energy and then mirroring it back to us, which is how we learn from them. So and then that's led me to the thing that I'm really passionate about, and I'm including with everything else, which is the psychedelic somatic therapy. Yeah,
Incredible, incredible. Yeah, let's dive deeper. So Jill was in my True Path Entrepreneur Group Mastermind program in 2021, and you were also doing this. I think this is when you did the somatic psychedelic. Like it was a training program or certification. And then you've now brought together like all this wisdom and this whole life experience. And I get it. You know, your journey was very similar to mine. When I really got into psychedelics on a deeper level, I had no one to turn to. I didn't have a therapist that understood it. No one around me actually understood what I was doing. And it was very jarring. You know, I remember really actually contemplating, like, why am I living? You know, like it was like, it really made me question everything. And I had no one to turn to because it was a long time ago and there wasn't really this discussion that we're having today. And thankfully over the years, I was led to somatic therapy. I was led to different integration modalities before they even called it integration. But yeah, let's dive deeper into, so what is it you offer now, and what is it you were doing a year ago before you joined my program? Like, how has this offering come about over, you know, this last year? Because now you're doing, like, you've blown up like breath work and integration and the somatic work. Yeah.
Oh, well, when I joined your mastermind, first of all, I had kind of watched you as you went, and when you deepened into the psychedelic aspect and you were coming out, as they would say, and really bringing that forward in your business several years ago, I'd kind of watched that. And you actually really inspired me to say, you know, I could do this. I could step out. So you've been kind of a mentor of mine before you even knew it. So thank you for that. And what I was working with is I was doing the psychedelic integration coaching. So I was helping people prepare for a psychedelic ceremony journey, to prepare all the aspects, and then to kind of create some navigational tools for the journey, and then to do the integration piece after. How do I bring this awareness, this wisdom, the insights, the ahas back into my everyday life so I can really start to create magic in the everyday? It's not just when we go to journey that we can have magic. I mean, that's my thing. I love magic. So I was really working with that, and I was doing the breath work, and I wanted that to obviously be an aspect because I do the breath work online and the coaching online. So I wanted all of that to be, you know, kind of the package and the program that I was creating. So that's what I walked into your mastermind with. And then during that time, I was introduced to psychedelic somatic therapy, which was created by Saj Razvi. And it's just the most powerful therapy I've ever done. And I've done a heck of a lot of therapies, different kinds, probably almost everything. And so that just blew everything open for me. And I knew this is my passion. This is what I want to do. So I've created a 6-month program that really helps people to deep dive into traumas, wounds, pains, you know, anything that has caused jarring and disruption in our system, to be able to actually access that information, that material, and to really heal that, and to also help people to resource. So we're going to take away some of like the old patterns and behaviors, and then how do we resource and bring in new ways of supporting oneself? So that's kind of where things really all came together for me. So I'm using the breath work, I'm using the time with the horses, and coaching practices to help people between the psychedelic somatic therapy sessions to then resource. So horses, they calm and soothe our nervous system, which is what the whole somatic therapy is about, like really diving into what's going on in the nervous system. Horses are so soothing for that. The breath work takes you in, it can take you into such a deep dive. It's a journey unto itself without medicine. So all of this kind of coming together to really help people to heal at these deep, deep levels. I mean, for me, I have always been seeking. I've known that there's hurts in me and traumas that I just could not access. They're there, but I can't change these certain behaviors. I still act a certain way around my sister. I still act a certain way when I'm at work, whatever it is. And it was like, nothing is really changing these deep, deep patterns. When I found the psychedelic somatic therapy, that is a therapy that touches into there. And then again, how do we resource somebody? And so it felt like, oh, it's all coming together, how this all works for me. So I feel like my puzzle has now filled in. Yeah. And what I'm offering.
Amazing.
Well, I keep talking, but to go back to your program is what really helped me to figure out and see how all the pieces work together. Because I came in with a lot of different trainings and a lot of different ideas, but it wasn't cohesive. And so everything that we've done step by step, and I've really followed step by step in doing what you say, because I trusted you. You told me, I've got your back. Like, we're going to do this. And so I followed everything you said to the letter. And voila, I mean, I really feel like I'm finally really on track with what I'm supposed to be doing and offering the world. So thank you, Beth.
And that's, oh no, you're welcome. And that's how I feel, because I've known you, Jill, for I don't know how many years now. And it's that same thing. Like, we've known each other. We were in a program together. I got to watch you coming out of your shell. And it's so fascinating how many clients over the years that I attract who have very similar backgrounds as you, where they've been seekers, probably because I've been a seeker as well my whole life. But, with many different kinds of trainings, or various background, like a body worker, an herbalist, studied cacao, studied plant medicine, studied breath work, studied meditation. And it's a very common thing where, okay, I've done this lifetime of work. I've gained all this knowledge. I've done my own integration. I've done my own healing. Now I'm ready to serve on a higher level, like a deeper level. Like, you could just serve as an acupuncturist the rest of your life and be great, right? But then, and I get this a lot where I do tend to get a lot of body workers, acupuncturists, nurses even, a lot of people from the Western healthcare system who went into it to help. And you get to this point in your own healing journey, I believe, that you then feel called to serve on a deeper level. And it is very common for people to say, how do I bring all these modalities together? And how do I make this one thing? Or how do I help someone heal this trauma and these wounds through, a combination of all these things? Because the reality is, and I know this from my own personal experience and my own healing, is that it's not just one magic bullet. And psychedelics, as much as I wish they were, are not the magic bullet either. It's all this other integration work. And for anyone that's not listening to this podcast, almost every single interview I have talks about all the other modalities. And a huge piece of it is the somatics, all this trauma that is stored in our body. And I always say, and I'm pretty sure Jill's heard me say this before because I say it to a lot of my clients, it's like, we have to understand, why are people even turning to psychedelics in the first place? Like, it's, yes, a lot of us start as young kids like, ooh, this just sounds fun. Back when I was 14, it was just like for the trip. But, at this point, especially with the narrative and the media and all the research that's coming out, people are, getting curious and starting to turn to psychedelics. And of course, a lot of people are like, maybe this is the thing that will help my depression, or maybe this is the one thing that'll fix that one, the one thing that I can't uncover. Just like you, I've gone through this as well, where it's like, I've drank so much ayahuasca and worked with so many mushrooms, and I've done all the things, and I've done meditation, and I still can't get to the trigger around my mom, or the one loop argument I get into with my partner, those kind of things. And how do we get to these deeper wounds and these deeper patterns that are actually running, let's be honest, running most of humanity? I mean, we see it all over, right? Like, look at our government. Like, oh, well, maybe if they just had some deep somatic therapy. But I'm wondering, I remember about a year ago, and maybe even a little bit before that, you were just starting to come out of the psychedelic closet. Like, I've known you long enough to know your background, and I knew, and you knew my background, and you knew me before I kind of came out of the closet as well. But what was that process like for you before and after? Like, was it scary, or was it more just being driven by this deeper level of service? Like, what brought you out to own who you are and, talk about psychedelics and put yourself out there?
It's both of the things you said. It was scary, and it was this deeper level of knowing who I am. And I think the times are so different now too. Back in, 30 or 27 years ago when I was first doing these things, it was so much more dangerous and so much more underground. So it's all of that. I had gotten kind of, again, like this calling back to the medicines, and I just more and more knew that, I was coming full circle to where I had wanted to be, again, 25 years ago, which was to really use these medicines in some way with people to support them. Had walked away from that, and now I'm coming back and being called back to what I knew I was supposed to do. So, it was scary. You just don't know how people are going to react. I've had just maybe one or two people that gave me a little flack. People I didn't really know that well, so it didn't really matter. Yeah. I mean, more than that, I've gotten so much positive response. And I think people are so desperate right now. We're so desperate for connection and hope and connection with ourselves more than anything. And that's why I think this, renaissance that we're in with psychedelics is so huge, because people are searching and longing for a way to feel comfortable in their skin. And so to be a part of that, I realized is a humongous honor. And that's what helped me to say, you know what, this is who I am. This is what I'm part of. And watching you say, you know what, I can brave whatever, feedback I get that's not positive, which I know you get at times, even still. So it felt like, yes, I want to be part of this. I am part of this, and I know how important this is. And that's what motivated me to finally say, here I am, But again, it's, like you said, psychedelics are just a piece to help us really tap in to the possibilities that are within us. That's what I feel like. And you can just keep doing them and not have any change at all, which I've seen with people, because the work is to actually create that within and in the everyday for yourself. And it does take work. It takes focus. It takes energy. And that's why having a coach supporting that is so, so helpful.
Ah, beautiful. And yeah, this was very similar to my own experience, where I had always been one of those people that have been doing a lot of integration work over the years without even knowing it was integration, right? Like, I always had a therapist. I was always doing my daily practice. I was going to Buddhist classes. I was, just really questioning everything that came through the psychedelic experience. Like, okay, what do I do with this? Like, how do I act on it? How do I make this a reality? And also, yeah, like you said, like, this can actually be the reality, the heart opening, the gratitude, the connection, the understanding of our divine nature. And what I started witnessing even within some of the communities I'm a part of, where I was doing this medicine work, is people just being in these loops, and not getting support and not actually getting anything out of the psychedelic experience other than like, okay, that was a great night, and now back to the same old me. And I'm like, well, why are you doing all this? Like, why even put yourself through this and spend the money and the time and the energy, and then nothing changes over and over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And this is why the conversation around integration has become so important. And thankfully, more and more people are starting to see it, and even I've, even through all the integration work I've done is like every now and then I'm like, oh, okay, I think I need to talk to someone about this because it's, some of it's not easy to process it. Some of it's really big. Some of it requires actually being in action, like taking the steps to make changes in your life or in your being or in your, dealing with traumas and, the energy and the patterns in our body that are stored there and actually doing something about them to then create life changes. Exactly. So, and I think it's been really beautiful to witness you. And yes, I do want to point out that it's always, there's always this fear of being seen. And, it is a little harder for people who are working in these kind of taboo realms of psychedelics or death or sacred sexuality or tantra. But, really, it's like anybody coming into their deeper authenticity, into their selves, into their soul purpose. It always feels scary. And yes, once in a blue moon, there's this like person, and it's usually someone I don't know, or, like two people that give you some slack. But then the large majority are the ones giving you positive feedback. Like, thank you so much. You're an inspiration. Wow, I didn't know this. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for supporting me. So I always encourage people to really focus on the positive feedback, which is always the majority. It's just, the perception of our world sometimes feels like, okay, there's a lot of haters. And so who am I to do this? I'm going to get yelled at by people. But it really is such a minor part of the grand picture of like, you're actually now able to help people and create change in their lives, which then creates the domino effect of transformation. So Jill, I want to ask you another thing about your journey into, like what I believe is your authenticity. It's like you're stepping into this deeper soul's purpose because you already were fine, an acupuncturist, great, like doing the equine work, great. But then now it's like you're offering breath work, you have a bunch of clients, I think you have different projects going on. I'm curious what changes you've noticed in your life that don't have to do with your business. Like, have you noticed different things being affected or different results happening in like every aspect of your life or other areas of life? And if so, like, what have you noticed change in the last year?
That's a great question. The first thing I think about is I have two sisters. They're both younger than me. And my youngest sister, we're so much alike that we tend to butt heads. We always have. And then once we kind of get at each other, it's hard for us to get out of these little arguments. And these are things that have gone back, 35, 40 years, right? Since we were kids. And so at Thanksgiving, we were having a great time. And then all of a sudden, one of these little old grooves that we get in, it's like the groove that's so worn down, we can hardly like stay out of it. We just drop right into it and then we can't get out. It started. And then all of a sudden I went, wait, this is not what I want. This is, I don't want to go down this path. I don't want this to happen. Usually I'm so knee jerk with her. Like it's just, I don't even know what's happening. And there we are. So what I noticed this year is that I took some space and I thought, I don't want this. And then she had kind of walked to another room and she took some space and did the same thing, which was new for her too. And we came back and we said, hey, let's not do this. I love you. I love you. So, I mean, it sounds small, but it's like for something that is a recurring, and family is the hardest because those grooves that we've etched in, those behaviors, those patterns, they're so deep and it's so easy to get triggered right back into it. And so I'm so proud of both of us. She's done her work. I'm doing my work. So to me, that's been kind of the biggest thing that I noticed of all, and I've always kind of had a willingness to look at my part in things, but I think even more so now, I'm having a willingness to also really find that compassion for the other person, instead of I'm looking at my part. Why aren't you looking at your part? It's more like I'm looking at my part and maybe it's too difficult for them right now to see, what's happening with them. And maybe I need to have respect for that. So I'm just noticing, especially relationships, that's where we really see it, right? Is when we're actually in the pressure cooker with another person. It's easy to feel like I'm so evolved when I'm just in my room by myself. But when I'm out there really with other people, that's when I can see the changes in my patterns and my behaviors. And then also this piece, like you said, of really stepping forward and saying, this is who I am. This is who I am. And now, especially when it's like the haters and all this, it's so intense now with social media. I think it takes even more courage. But in a way, those people are reminding me that I am doing that, because I wouldn't be creating people having upset with me if I wasn't actually speaking how I really felt and who I really am. And I really credit your program with that. I mean, you talk about that all the time. And you give us a place to really practice stepping forward and being held by the group. The Facebook group that we have, like, we get to practice showing up in a new way and really being held. So I credit your program for a lot of what's going on with me. Yeah, no, truly. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And yeah, I love that story about your sister, because I know family is always the hardest, and then, just human relation in general. But yeah, family for me has been the biggest mirror, just to see, okay, when I'm doing my own work and doing the inner work and me changing, like, those around me are also changing. It's like our reality is a mirror. And then when I show up differently, which I personally, and I'm sure this is a part of your journey as well, is crediting the work you're doing with the psychedelics, the work you're doing with the integration, your own deep healing work, your own willingness to get uncomfortable and come out of your shell into your, what I call, it's like this liberation of like really becoming more authentically you, which then gives others around you this permission, like, oh, okay, now I'm seeing her differently. Now she's showing up differently. I'm going to show up differently, which is, like, yes, people could be doing work, but then when we start to shift our reality, like everything in our reality starts to shift. And I have seen those, magic, unexplainable moments where I'm like, well, wait a second, like my brother was never like that. So how is he all of a sudden different? Like, okay, it's me. And then it's also that reflection, it's like people do interact with your energy different when you're not stuck in those patterns, right? Like the patterning. And I know exactly what you mean. It's like so easy. You just unconsciously fall into patterns. And then we get stuck there. And this is actually something that comes up a lot, just even within my own program. It's like, it's very easy to stay the same and to get stuck and to just, be in these loops. But if you're willing to change, willing to give something new a try, willing to start embodying a new way of being that's never been before. I always say, like, look, if you had a business doing what you really wanted to be doing and had clients and were being supported by it, you would have already done it. So of course, the program involves a lot of trying new things, which can be highly triggering. It's not hard. It's very simple, but it's really, I do believe what I'm doing inside of my program is way more than just like, the marketing and it's literally, I see it as like a liberation of the soul. Like you're stepping more into your soul's path and becoming that channel. And really, like you said, like look around us. Like the world is an intense place. There is this desperation for a lot of people to get help. I do believe we have some level of like a mental health crisis on our hands. And it's time for those that are being called to really step up and serve and put our fears and our egos aside and say, okay, yes, I'm afraid to come out and do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Or yes, it feels scary to share this on Facebook, but I'm going to share myself anyways. And what's the worst that could happen? Okay, like the worst that happens is we die. Are you going to die from sharing yourself on Facebook? Probably not. Are you going to feel scared? Yes. But this is exactly what we do. Now, let's get into a little bit more of what you do. And I really love it because it's fascinating. Somatic work as part of the integration process with psychedelics has come up with almost every single interview I've done for the past 3 years straight. And I always wonder, is it me? Because I believe in it so much. It's been a huge part of my path. And I do believe on some level, my former partner, who's a somatic therapist, he used to say, like, I believe this work will change the world. Like, this is actually what could save the planet if everybody could give it a try. Now, what kind of people are you helping mostly? Is it people that are dealing with, like, they turn to psychedelics to help heal their trauma, or is it people who turn to psychedelics and then all of a sudden deep stuff comes up? Like, who are the kind of clients that you're working with the most?
The people that I'm working with the most are people like you and I, people who, again, they have these places in themselves that, I mean, they've tried so many things. They're people who are seekers. They're people who have a willingness to do deep dive, wanting to find more peace within, find more comfort in their skin. And they've tried a lot of things and they still aren't tapping into these deeper places with what they're utilizing. So they're coming to me, and what we're doing is we're doing a process where you use just a little bit of cannabis or a little bit of ketamine, and then we go into a somatic process, and we're utilizing those medicines. You can also do it without. I have clients who do it without because some people don't want to do that, and it's just as effective, but it goes a little faster when you're utilizing the medicines. And we're doing this somatic process where we're really having them feel into their body. It's working with the nervous system, and what is being held in the body is able to finally be brought up. And so a big part of healing, I believe, is being able to be with what is. We're not trying to change it or fix it. We're just allowing ourselves to feel the sadness that maybe has been held in the body since we were 5, or, you know, the trauma from a car accident when we were 7, that we don't realize there's still trauma in the body and it's still influencing the way we react to things, but we don't know that it's running us like that. So this work is where it actually gets to come up. It gets to be felt and acknowledged and seen. And in that's a way of healing it. We're also working with the nervous system. We're working with people when they're in the sympathetic, which is fight or flight, fear, anger, you know, that comes up for people. And then sometimes people drop into the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which is where we go into dissociation. That's when we fall into that old groove with our sister or our brother. We don't even realize that it's happening. And suddenly we're acting in a way where we're like, I have no control over this. And we're kind of checked out. We don't even realize that we're doing it. So that is in kind of our parasympathetic part of our nervous system. And so this work kind of drops us into that place, which is kind of like, it's like a veil. It's like we don't even realize, like, you know, we're unconscious. And this work kind of pierces that veil so that we're not unconscious there anymore. We realize we're conscious when we're doing it. Now we have choice. But then when we pierce that veil of where we kind of like, I can't handle the world right now, I'm going to drop into, you know, dissociation. I'm just going to check out for a while. When we start to kind of open that up and take that away, that's where the resourcing comes in. What are other options that I have besides just going unconscious and numb? You know, what do I have besides eating myself silly or drinking too much or binging on TV 3 nights in a row because I can't handle my feelings? How can I learn how to be with my feelings and be with what is and be okay with that? And that's what I think brings a wholeness to people. I can hold my sadness. I can hold my joy. I can handle when I'm feeling mad. Like, I can handle all of this because I have a wholeness. And we're not taught that in our culture. We're not taught how to deal with sadness or fear. So I think that this is so profound of tapping into where we're stuck that we don't even know and learning how to be with who we are at every level in every emotion. And then we go out into the world kind of more of a whole person and able to handle whatever comes our way. So you can see I'm super passionate about it.
No, and I love it. I'm sitting here getting goosebumps because, you know, I was actually in a somewhat similar type of pseudo training program. I don't even know what you would call it because she doesn't call it a training program, but where we went really deep into different somatic therapy modalities and then other types of therapy modalities, and then worked with different medicines and did a whole bunch of different practices. But I remember there was one weekend, And we were doing in person. So there was a lot of practicing with one another and practicing in this. It was only 11 of us, so a small group. But, here I am in my 40s. I've been working with psychedelics since I was 14 years old, 30 years of experience. And we did a little tiny microdose with these modalities that you're talking about, like the somatic work, the really diving into the feeling, looking at our patterning, that unconscious patterning. And we actually studied these, like body character structure patterns and how our traumas form and the energy in our body. And it was like, even on this tiny little microdose, working with someone in the group that's a peer who's not even an actual therapist, I had the biggest breakthroughs I've probably had in years. And I'm like, that was like a 30-minute session with a super small dose that was like, it was a little perceptible, but it wasn't like a huge, it wasn't like an ayahuasca ceremony. It was a little psilocybin microdose. And it was just having the tools, just being able to have that safe container and go inward. It was like all of a sudden things were able to be seen that I wasn't able to see before. And I'm like, oh my God, these patterns, and this is where I do believe this work that you're doing on some level is like, I do believe very big that it is the answer to a lot of the problems that humanity faces. Like I personally keep saying, it's like the media keeps talking about psychedelics healing depression and PTSD and anxiety, and I could go on, but what is at the root of the anxiety and the depression and the PTSD? Like, what is beneath all that? Because, yes, maybe it'll help you feel better. And yes, it does, on some level, like there is this aspect of like, okay, things feel better. But then where is it actually doing the true healing? And this is where the true healing is not just from the medicine. It's from having a safe container with someone who's able to hold it and to work with you through it. And we all know psychedelic assisted therapy is becoming more of a thing, but and this is something I've been actually talking to people on these interviews recently, is that the demand is really high right now, and the supply of actual licensed therapists who are able to work with certain medicines is actually very low. And it's not only that, it's very inaccessible to a lot of people. Either they're not in the right place, or they can't afford it, or they're completely book solid for the next year straight. So this is where I do believe this model of there's a lot of incredible other kinds of therapists and coaches and healers who've been doing this kind of work. Like even the person I've been working with for a few years is technically not a licensed therapist, but she's been like you. She has this whole life of experience, and I have gotten more results working with her, and 98% of the time we're actually sober. Like there's no actual medicine involved. It's like I'm doing a lot of the integration, and it's just like, wow, this is so incredible. And it is incredible how fast things can actually heal. And I actually always hesitate to even use that word heal. But if I've seen it, and I've seen it with those around me, and I've seen it with my own clients, and I've seen, like this really deep integration work along with the other tools, the breath work, the somatics, having a support, having someone to guide you to go deeper into the trauma and the feelings. Like this is where the actual healing's been taking place. So I love what you're doing, and especially with your incredible background to understand, the energetics of the body, coming through acupuncture. It's like now you're bringing this all together into this cohesive offering, and it's so exciting. And so in our last few minutes, I want you to talk about, so you do this, you've been doing these online, I think they're online, right? These online breathwork
online
sessions.
And in person. Oh, the breathwork is online, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you're coaching in person, or?
The psychedelic somatic therapy I'm doing in person or online. I work with people in other states, but I also work with people locally in San Diego where I live. Yeah.
And then
so you can do both.
Horse therapy, I'm assuming.
Gotta be there. I'm trying to figure out how to bring the horse on Zoom.
I've been wanting to do that. There's a woman near me. I'm like, she does some kind of thing with horses, and I'm like, maybe I should, because I love them, and I used to ride when I was a kid. And then, let's talk about, I know. And I want to see what I really just want to go and hang out and pet them. But yeah, let's talk about this online breath work that you've been offering. What does that look like, and what's that all about?
Oh, thanks for asking. I studied with David Elliott, and I think it's his birthday today. I just saw online, but he is an amazing human being who's just sharing breath work with the world because he knows how powerful and healing it is for people to, again, be with themselves. And that's what the breath work process, it really brings you into whatever's being held in the body, really. And so I offer a class on Wednesday nights online. When we're in the breathwork process, you have your mic and your camera off. So it's really, really private, and you get to just kind of lay on your bed or your couch, and there's a breathwork pattern. So it's an active breathwork set to music, and the music is always specifically chosen to take you on this kind of journey through the body, through the nervous system. And people really go deep. I mean, it can feel like a psychedelic journey just in the 40 minutes that we do the breath work. And at the end, there's a shavasana where you really get to feel. And again, that's the integration, right? You get to kind of let everything land and settle and come together. That's come up during the breath work pattern. So I have found personally the breath work is one of the most powerful things I've ever done. So again, I'm so excited because I'm finding these things that now for me are, again, tapping into these places in myself that I have been really wanting to go to for a long time. And I'm seeing it with people, what's happening for them. So it is a journey. You're going through emotions, sadness, happiness, fear, anger, joy, ecstasy. It all comes up in the breath work. And it's very exciting.
Wow. I didn't even know I didn't know the details of how this went. And I'm like, wait, I need to start going to that because I love when breathwork has the music. And the last time I did an online breathwork, the cameras were on. I was not into it. So I turned my computer the other way. Jill, this is awesome. And so one last question, and then we'll talk about where people can find you and how they can work with you. As someone who has gone through the entire 12-month True Path Entrepreneur Group Mastermind program, I'm curious, who would you say this program is for? And, would you recommend it? And if so, to what kind of person?
Oh, I love this question. Okay. So I think that the program is good. I would say it's not just for people who already have a business or even necessarily have an idea exactly of what the business is. You take us step by step where we're actually honing in as we go through the process. So, a lot of people come into the program when I've been in it who say, I'm not really exactly sure what it is I'm doing. And I think that's a perfect person because the process itself, and that's what it did for me, is help me to really hone in by the projects, the exercises that we do, the calls, your advice, your, things that you'll say to us, questions you ask us. So you don't have to know exactly what it is, but you have to have a willingness to do the work and to listen, and a willingness to want to really create something for yourself business-wise. It's not for someone who doesn't want to really make the effort or do it. I would say that's not the right person. But the right person, along with someone who's not sure but has some ideas, is the person who says, yes, I'm passionate about this one thing. I really want to bring it forward into the world. And you in the Mastermind program help us to birth that.
Beautiful. Yes. And I agree. It's, you just have to have that willingness. I say it all the time in the group, just show up, even the people that show up and do the bare minimum, if you do the bare minimum, you get results. If you go full on with your full heart and with your intention, you get a lot of results. So awesome, Jill.
That's what can I just say one more thing? I just want to say also, those are the people that I saw really making headway. The people that they might not have been at the same step where we were but they were always on the calls and they were always active in the Facebook group. Those people excelled even if they weren't doing a lot, but they were showing up, which made that commitment to the universe. Yes, I want this. So I wanted to add that.
Thank you for adding it. Yes, it's true. And someone actually asked me recently, who doesn't get results in your program? I'm like, well, if you quit doing anything and you quit going to the calls and you quit showing up for yourself, then the universe will not show up for you. It's co-creation. So it's very simple. It's like, just do the bare minimum, just show up, set an intention, put in a little bit of energy. It doesn't even have to be like work. It's like, just do, take little tiny actions that show the universe that you're ready, and the universe will respond back. Awesome, Jill. So tell people a little bit about where can they find your breath work sessions? Like, how can they find out about it? And then how can they find out more about working with you potentially?
People can go to my website, which is jillvanmeter.com. You can also go to Facebook and find me there. The breathwork classes are listed there. I also have a meetup group, and it's called Alter, ALTEUR, Alter. And that's where the breathwork is also listed. Yeah.
Ooh, that's amazing. I didn't even know you had the meetup.
Yeah, I wanted to also say that I can't recommend your program enough. I mean, honest to goodness, it really, I would love to just keep continuing, just the accountability, but the information, the guests that you brought on guest instructors, it's just so A+ in every way. I mean, I'm really, honestly, I mean this to everybody who's listening. I couldn't be where I am now if I hadn't been in your program. So I'm just so thankful to you, Beth, really.
I am just so grateful that you trusted in me and showed up. Because I've witnessed you from when we first met, and now I'm like, wait, you're just so much more you. Like, what I noticed with people, and it's not just you, I've seen this over the years, and I noticed it within myself, noticed it with my former partner, everybody, friends. When you come out of your shell and you're starting to live that divine purpose, like the next level of your service and your purpose, like your whole energy changes. Like your being, your radiance, your energy, like it draws. And this is part of the attraction. It's like people start paying attention and wanting to work with you. And I've seen you just come out, and I'm like, wait, you're so much more than when I first met you. I'm like, there's all this stuff about you that I think never came out. So it's beautiful. And this is why I always say it's like this like soul liberation. My friend calls herself a soul emancipator. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of essentially what we're doing inside of this mastermind. So
that's awesome. That's great.
Thank you so much, Jill. Well, we'll have your links, including your Facebook links and the meetup for attending the breath work, and then check out Jill's program, especially if you are on the psychedelic path and you're not really stepping out of those loops or you're falling into the same patterns. It is time to actually do the integration work, and you will see how much the integration, and especially the somatic integration that Jill provides, how much it will help you make real lasting changes on your path. Thank you so much, Jill. It was such an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Beth. Thanks so much.
And stay tuned. We'll have another episode on Tuesday next week. I will see you then. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're feeling inspired, I'd appreciate it if you showed your love with a review. And check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of this podcast. You can also head to bethaweinstein.com to learn more about me and grab my free business growth trainings. Remember, you carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times.